People here already.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, everybody.
How is everyone doing this evening?
Hey. I'm good.
Give us a shout out. Let us know you're here.
Oh, doesn't
We
mind.
already got one. She's coming. Ready for the spoilers. We will be talking spoilers, so just so everybody knows, it will be spoiled.
How can you let yourself be spoiled for a mystery, though? I get it with some books. I spoil myself all the time because I'm totally fine with like peeking ahead, but not with a mystery. I try not to for mysteries.
It's funny because this is the second time I've read this.
Yeah.
And so even though I knew like the general, like what was going on, I still didn't remember like what was that? Like I don't remember what that was, you know, things like that.
Yeah, there are lots of like little puzzles and like pieces to put together throughout like the timeline and everything.
Uh-huh.
Sally also is going to get spoiled. Sally.
Oh, Sally.
Oh, speaking of which, Amanda, I watched your Owl Crate unboxing today.
Yes.
That book looks so cute.
It does look so cute. I was lucky enough. I was actually sent the book by the publisher also. So I have both copies now. I have the Owl Crate exclusive.
If you want to,
one might be floating into a pile for
Christmas.
A Christmas thing. I mean,
I'd be okay with that. I was just gonna say that. I mean, if you have to unload one of them.
But I have, and on top of that, I also got the audio arc from NetGalley.
Oh, nice.
So I have the audio of it, and it is so cute so far. Like, I have listened to, like, the first third of it, and it's so cute. And the actual print book has illustrations in it.
Love.
It's so fun.
I just want to say that you look a little like Princess Leia.
Oh,
I have to put these on because it's summer and my kids don't have a bedtime and they like to scream a lot. So rather than letting you listen to them, I put on the noise canceling headphones. Sarah asked what the new Owl Crate Junior book was, and here, let me grab it really quick.
Yeah, I forgot. We were talking about it not too long ago, but I already forgot the title.
Green Wild.
Green Wild.
Oh, so cute.
By Pari Thompson.
Oh yeah, I'm really interested in that one.
Fantasy retelling, fantasy inspired by The Secret Garden.
I love that. It's such an Amanda book.
I love The Secret Garden. So I need to reread The Secret Garden. It is seriously one of my favorites. I love this, Jacqueline. You and me both. I have the worst memory. The worst. All right. Well, should we go ahead and get into it a little bit? So we are going to be discussing The Parker Inheritance by Varian Johnson, in case you just like randomly clicked here and you're like, I don't know what we're doing. So this is a middle grade mystery. It has a bunch of different aspects to it that we're going to be discussing tonight. We're really excited to hear all of your opinions about it. To start off, though, and I might repeat this later if needed, we are all aware that there are some controversial issues that arose within the text of this novel. And this is a space where we will all show respect to everybody, or you will be blocked. Like, not to be mean about it, but we will not tolerate disrespect towards anybody in regards to anything in this book. So, just so that you all are aware, and not to throw shade at anybody, just yeah. That's our kind of
disclaimer.
There you go. Disclaimer. That's the word I was looking for. Disclaimer for the evening. All right. So to kick things off, let's talk our general thoughts and ratings. And then Katie actually will be joining us here in a little while. And when she pops on, we'll have her give her thoughts and her rating as well. But Krista, you want to go first?
Sure. I really enjoyed this. I listened to it on audio, which I don't think is the best for me with mysteries. I am not an audio learner, and I love a good story on audio, so I did really enjoy listening to it, but I missed so much because I wasn't fully, I don't know, all the puzzles, the riddles, I feel like kind of go in one ear and out the other, and I didn't really fully comprehend all of it, but I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I liked, I do think it's kind of more skews towards the upper end of middle grade because it does deal with a lot of heavy stuff for sure. I mean, I wouldn't put this in the hands of like a 9, 10, 11-year-old, but 13, 12, 13, 14, depending on the kid for sure. I do. Yeah. So it's upper middle grade. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the friendship between the two main, what I see, Candace and Brandon. I love their friendship and how it started from like, I'm not talking to you to like, I don't want to go on in this mystery without you, Brandon. I need you. Yeah, I loved watching that friendship develop. I thought that was really sweet. There's a lot that I definitely loved about it. And yeah, I also don't think it like pushed itself into the 5-star because of like beautiful writing or anything like that. I think it was great. And I think listening to it also kept it from being 5 stars for me rather than reading it. So, yeah.
What about you, Jenna?
I feel almost the exact same way as Krista. It's really funny. Everything that you were saying, I really resonate with. I did read it a little bit more than listen to it on audio, but I did listen to quite a bit of it on audio. So first of all, I gave it 4 stars as well. I really enjoyed the getting to go back in time and like seeing the different characters for themselves as they were living out their lives rather than just reading about a character that existed in the past. When we first started doing that in the story, I just felt like I wasn't really connecting to that. But then once we got to when we got to go inside the minds of those characters from the past is when I started to connect the dots more and connect more with the story. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. I didn't think that the writing like blew me away, but I still enjoyed it. It was what it needed to be, I think. And what else? I did enjoy the puzzles. I'm not a huge mystery reader. It's got to have like some other aspect to it that I really connect with for me to like really get into a mystery. But this one, I did connect with the characters and the friendship between Candace and Brandon. I also loved the scene when they were at the library. It was just very, very sweet to me. And I loved them talking about the Westing game and their favorite books and the whole discussion on girl books versus boy books I thought was really intriguing, and they brought up a lot of good points because it's something I deal with every once in a while at the library. So I enjoyed that discussion. Overall 4 out of 5 stars. Didn't absolutely blow me away, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it.
Fantastic. Well, this is my second time reading it, and I loved it again. I loved it the first time I read it. I loved it now. I love it now. This is Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan. Okay. Get out of here, okay? Love you. But yeah, I loved the mystery aspect of it with the clues, and I loved the friendship between Candace and Brandon so much. I love the historical aspect of it, and how certain aspects of the historical aspect, that's a lot of aspects, but how it was tied to like real life events. If you read the author's note, some of the things were inspired by true events. And I adore this book. So it was a 5 for me again, which I don't read a lot of 5-star reads anymore. So I'm glad it was. I'm glad I loved it just as much this time around as I did last time around. But there are definitely some differing opinions I'm seeing in the comments. We have everything from 2 stars to 5 stars, and lots of in between. And that's great. I feel like that's what every book should have. I mean, no book is going to be perfect for everybody, but it sounds like a lot of you at least enjoyed it for the most part, which I call that a win. Yeah. Oh, Katie's here. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
Perfect timing. We are just talking about like our general overview thoughts. Did you like it? What did you rate it? So we're just going to throw you into the fire.
Okay. Did everyone else already go?
Everybody else already went. Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm gonna need to hear a summary after I give my thoughts, because I want to know what everyone. Because we haven't had a chance really to talk.
Yeah, the 4 of us haven't really talked about it.
No, and I finished the book like 2 hours ago. So, so I really liked it. I think I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was great. This is my wish. I wish that I had read The Westing Game more recently. I think I read that. I don't even remember. I know that I must have read it as a kid, but I have no memories of reading it. And I feel like because it was referenced so often in the book, and I have a feeling maybe even the mystery was like there are aspects of the mystery that tied into that book. I wish I would have been more familiar with it. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought the writing was great. Like, it was just really, really solid middle grade writing, and plot was great. Loved the characters. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Well, that's pretty much exactly what Jenna said.
Okay. Yeah. That's what who said?
Jenna and Krista.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I adore it. So I gave it 5 stars.
Yeah.
I love it so much. But I think for me, the reason that I loved it so much was because of that historical aspect that it brought in. That just like, yeah. So anyway, all right. Moving right along, we are going to talk about one of the bigger aspects that I think was a little bit divisive. As far as I know, like looking over Goodreads ratings and seeing what worked for people, what didn't work for people. Even in the comments tonight already, I've seen this referenced. It's the dual timelines. It really worked for some people and it really didn't work for other people. How did it make you guys feel, like the dual timelines? Did you like it? Did you not like it? How was the transitioning back and forth? What did you guys think of it?
I don't ever have a problem with dual timelines, usually. Well, not that I don't have a problem. There's usually one timeline that I like better than the other, and I didn't feel that in this one because they were so connected by the end. I don't know. I liked the dual timelines. I did see somebody mention that there was just a lot of characters and it was hard to keep them straight, and I agreed with that, especially listening to it on audio. It was a little tricky until we got into it a little more and I started to have an understanding of who everybody was. But at the beginning, I'm like, wait a minute, who is this person? Who is that person? Like, it took me a little bit to figure out even that we were in the past at times, because it just kind of like in the book, they're colored differently. The pages are colored differently. So, okay, now we're in the past. But until you got to know those and the dates, I mean, it does say the dates on the timeline. So sometimes when it says dates on an audiobook, I just don't really listen to that, but I had to listen to it so that I would know, okay, now we're in the past. But once I got a little ways into it, that was better. But I really enjoyed the historical connection and just learning about the history of this town in particular, her grandmother, and like starting from there anyways. And like, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Me too. I think if we didn't get a dual timeline, there's no way for me anyway to connect with what's currently going on in present day. Like I wouldn't have been nearly as invested as I was if I didn't already know the stories behind these people that they're talking about from however many years ago, 1957 and all of those other years. Yeah, I think it was necessary. We needed to know their stories in order to appreciate what was going on in present day and to see a lot of those parallels too.
I tend to not love dual timeline with my historical fiction unless there's a mystery to it. So like a Kate Morton book, for example, where there's a dual timeline and there's also an unraveling of the mystery, and they like connect together, and like you're learning things about both at the same time. And so the dual timeline in this one worked for me, but I totally agree, Krista, that I'm not generally an audiobook listener, but I knew I was not gonna, my reading life is dead right now, and I knew I wasn't gonna be able to finish it if I didn't listen to the audiobook. Even though I can read with my eyes faster than I can listen. Like I anyway, that's another topic, but it's hard for me to keep track of names. And I feel like partly because of that, and like I miss things here and there, especially in a mystery book, like that was a little difficult for me. And the dual timelines made that a little squidgier. But I think that's just because I was reading it in a way that I don't normally do.
Yeah, I think the dual timelines for me specifically in this book work so well because we were finding out, like Jenna said, we were finding out the things about the past that Candace and Brandon were getting ready to learn, right? So we were getting the backstory of what was going on in the past as they were getting ready to like link those clues together. So we could we could almost be like sleuths too. Oh, that's what that is like referring to, right? It was a lot of characters. I got to a point where I wrote them all down just so I could make sure I remembered everybody's name for tonight. But for me, when I think about like the past timeline, I think about like really the 4 main characters, right? You had, or five main characters. You had Siobhan, you had her dad, you had Chip and his dad, and you had Reggie. And so if you think about that, it's a little bit, there were a lot more characters, but those were like the main 5 that I focused in on. But so for me, the dual timelines I loved. I thought it was really interesting near the end how it started like skipping forward and bringing the timelines together a little bit when it came to Reggie. And we'll get to more about specifically Reggie / James. We'll have a specific time to talk about that. But for me, the dual timelines, I loved it. I will say, especially listening to the audio, you did have to pay attention to what was going on, especially at the beginning when you didn't really know names. You didn't really understand the setting, especially because they're in the same town. You don't, things like that. You did have to really pay attention to what was going on.
And the past timeline was from different perspectives. Whereas in the present day, it was just from Candace's perspective. So in the past, you're getting all of those different people from their perspective, which is cool if you think of it, but tricky.
It is a lot as a reader to be like, wait, what is happening?
Who is this person now? Why are we talking about tennis? Like, why are we talking about tennis right now? Yeah, it took me a little bit.
To be like, yeah. Okay, let's talk about, speaking of all the characters, let's talk about some of the characters. Who were your favorite characters?
Brandon.
Sweet little Brandon.
Sweet Brandon.
I want him to be my best friend. He's just so cute. I mean, Candace is amazing too, don't get me wrong. But Brandon, I love him.
I love Tori. I thought Tori was fantastic. She was just like the sister that was just along for the ride. And she was like, sure, you guys want to go do this? Let's go. Let's see what kind of chaos we can ensue, It was amazing. I loved her so much.
Their relationship was just adorable. It felt real.
I love the scene where Brandon was like under punishment and
I was just going to say that.
Down, and she was like, you sit there and you don't talk. Like I'm interpreting.
When Grandpa comes home, you've got to run upstairs because my interpretation of your punishment
Oh, it cracked me up.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love Tori so much. What about you, Krista? Who was your favorite?
I don't know. I liked Candace. I liked Candace and Brandon, but I liked how smart they were. I just really love seeing smart kids, like working on puzzles for fun, and because it was a way that she connected with her grandma. Now we know why, but but I loved, just that she was a strong-willed, like she wasn't afraid to go run at the bullies when she saw them picking on Brandon. She got right in the midst of it and was like, knock it off. I just loved her spunkiness and smarts.
Yeah.
And
sure.
it felt real. Like, again, their friendship just felt realistic to me. Like when the moms were like, oh, we have kids that are the same age. They need to be friends. And at first they're like, who are you? I'm not going to talk to you.
I don't want to talk to you.
But it just kind of, they warmed up to each other. And I just thought their friendship was really sweet. So yeah, the two of them together, I thought was sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that they bonded over books, which is just, it was so sweet. I think that they're so many of their conversations, if not all of them, were just really, if they felt real, they felt realistic as what like a real conversation between kids this age would have. And then Siobhan, I also thought was an interesting character as well. I felt drawn to her.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, kind of going into the dual timeline thing, the past characters, as we started to get the more recent, like, so not 1957, but after, Siobhan and her dad or her family, like, they moved to Maryland and Reggie moved. And then we see them in the, like, future for them, but still past for Candace and Brandon, right? But how they developed throughout their life, I thought was super interesting to see, down the road, Siobhan standing up to her dad and being like, you were so full of hate and this is not okay. Mm-hmm. And even Big Dub, seeing his character progress over time. And it was just really interesting to see that character arc for some of those past characters.
Mm-hmm. I think, so Katie McNeese says in the comments, I like Siobhan and her willingness to stand up even to her dad when she felt she was right. And there's a real connection there between Siobhan's character and Candace's character, who stands up to people, to not just people, but like to authority figures.
Yeah, the grandpa, someone mentioned when she called the grandpa out. Like,
I was like, I don't know about that.
No, I definitely, I think especially like in a middle grade book, to see the characters and the arc through their lifetime. We got this a little bit too in Rover's Story when we read it back in March, seeing that character arc throughout their life and seeing how, just because you're this way right now as a kid doesn't necessarily mean that's the way you have to be your whole life. Like, it's okay to develop and change over time. And so I thought that was just an interesting perspective of the book. All right. Let's chat about the clues and the mystery. Chris is like, I don't remember any of the clues. I don't remember anything about the mystery. You guys are on your own. How did you figure out any of the clues before they did?
Yeah.
Did you have any idea what was going on? Did any
Absolutely not.
Even as they're talking about how they're solving it, I'm like, what?
Same. When it got to the numbers, I was like,
what are you
this is beyond me. How are you getting this?
Listen,
what numbers?
If I was put in an escape room, I'd be there forever. I would never escape because I would never figure anything out.
So we should not do that as a team building exercise the next time we get together. It would just be me doing the whole thing and you guys all sitting in the corner crying.
Like if we were in an escape room or something, it would be Amanda.
It would be 100%.
The only thing I did, I mean, I knew that love.
Oh yes, the tennis
I
sport.
knew that because I know tennis terms, so I knew that. But that's it, and I didn't know,
I didn't know
Well,
how
the clue that said like she loved all. I was like, okay, that's a tennis like.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that related to the tennis score. That was the only one that I had figured out. I thought the tie into the Euler number. That one. I was like, this is I can't. Like, what a like super in depth like nerdy number thing. I thought that like I love math. My mom's a math teacher, like or was a math teacher. I just thought that was like. For me, for the author to like come up with this stuff, like how creative.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. Kudos to him for sure, because I couldn't even imagine trying to put all of that together.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. I also, this isn't really related to the clues, but I thought it was really interesting that it focused on the sport of tennis. Of all things,
I thought that too.
Because you don't see that a lot in anything ever. Like you just don't see. I mean, other than the new, I guess Taylor Jenkins Reid book was about tennis, but you don't. That's not like a popular kids sport where, like, if it would have been basketball or something along those lines, it would have been more, a grab for some of the kids. That it's maybe targeted towards, but the fact that it's about tennis to me was like interesting. Like one of my kids plays tennis, and so I thought it was kind of fun, but I just thought it was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I loved that choice, but I also thought it was interesting because you don't think of it as a kid's sport at all, really. Even though I played tennis when I was a kid, but
yeah,
you don't think about that.
I love this also. The grandmother had the right idea with the tennis court, but she took it too literally. And I love that as at the end, she knew that's why she was messing up, was because she was so set in her ways and she needed somebody that could look at things differently.
Yep.
And like how inspiring, like to read that as an adult and understand that kids are so smart. We just have to listen to them. They bring such a different perspective on the world, and we need to listen to that perspective. Just because they're not as experienced as us doesn't mean that they don't have valid opinions like we do.
Or that they can look at things in a really fresh way. Like they can think about things really, really uniquely. It makes me think like when toddlers are learning how to talk and they aren't stuck in they're learning the rules of English, right? And they take it and they think about it. They're so creative sometimes when they come up with their grammar rules, right? Because they know the rule, and so they're going to apply it, but it's not really how it is. But anyway, it just made me think like kids can look at things with really fresh eyes, fresh perspectives, and unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I loved, and just to like jump off that point too, like it felt totally believable to me that kids would be solving this mystery. It felt, that felt believable to me. Whereas I think that's sometimes
thanks to Google.
Yeah. Right? But like I think sometimes where kids' mysteries lose me is that it's not it is like a kid would never be solving never be allowed even to like solve a murder or whatever, like this was and it was believable to me that her grandmother, especially when what we come to find out at the end of the novel, that her grandmother would like hand it off to her to say, this is a mystery that you get to solve. Yeah.
No, I love the mystery aspect of it. I also thought that the whole setup of the inheritance and how the intention behind it was for whoever was going to figure it out was going to learn about that tennis game and what happened to Big Dub and Reggie, right? Like that was the point, was that the people that are living in this town now need to learn the history of this town. And if they are willing to recognize the town's history, then he will help support the town. And so what did you think about that little caveat that he put in there, that you're only going to get the money if you tell the world what you found out? Do you think that that was like manipulative, or did you like that aspect of the mystery, or are you totally like don't care?
I don't know if I had thought about it in a manipulative way. I don't think so. I liked it because it just brings a deeper meaning to it all, and it makes it matter more to this, this world that the authors created and to us as readers. That was my perspective.
I don't know. I thought he was a little manipulative, but it served the purpose of the story.
Well, sure he was, but I mean, his whole life had to change because of that night.
I know. I mean,
and if we continue to not face history, then it's just going to continue to repeat itself, right?
Yeah.
And so,
right. I think
the outcome is good. He might have been feeling bitter and manipulative in putting it in place, but I do think, I mean, there's benefit to truth and history and knowing
Absolutely
all that stuff. So
yes, his goal, I think, was good, but I do think he was manipulative, and he wanted, like, if his goal was for the truth to out, like, what if the mystery had never been solved? Like, this is where my mind went. Like,
right.
He wants everyone to know the history and for people to face the history. Like, the mystery almost went unsolved.
Right.
And so, like, there was a little bit of a clash there in that. So I felt like, if he really wanted the truth to come forward, he could have come out too himself.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. You're absolutely right. I do think, though, that because of his character development, like where he ended the story at, I think that somewhere along the line, he might have done it. But I guess we'll never know.
Why do you think that the town people, whatever, everybody else that got the letter, why do you think they were so adamant that they squash it? Like, why do you think her grandma was the only one that even attempted to try to figure it out? I mean, if somebody was like, hey, I got $42 million to give you, wouldn't you at least try to figure it out? But they were all like, squash it. No.
Well, it sounded like, based on the other council member, whoever he was, that his self-preservation trumped any amount of money that would go towards the town.
Embarrassment, shame,
which is very human.
Part of it,
very, very human.
Absolutely. And how interesting that it landed in the hands of kids who had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So like, hey, if we don't find the money, at least we had fun trying.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that finally.
Another reason why it's so believable that kids would do it, because they don't have anything to lose.
Absolutely. I loved the historical aspect of it, and the digging for history, and having for those kids to learn so much about their town, and the town history, and really dig into it and interview different people, like going to people, like looking through town records, looking in the memorial room, all these different things that they did and how much they learned and gained from that experience. I thought it was just a really cool setup for the mystery as a whole. Okay, let's talk about the Reggie / James Parker character arc. I feel like he is the character that changes the most from the time we meet him to the time we say goodbye. he has a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs, and you think he's going to be great, and then you're like, wait a minute, maybe not so much, you know? How did you guys feel about him and his journey?
I mean, I felt terrible for him.
Yeah.
For the longest time. He did obviously make some questionable, to put it mildly, decisions somewhere, at a few places down the line. But I just felt, I felt terrible. I empathized with him a lot. And I don't know. I was rooting for him. I didn't always support his decisions, but I was rooting for him the whole time.
Were you satisfied with the ending and where he ended up?
I think so. Yeah.
When I learned that he was the shoe shine boy when Chip was macking on Siobhan, and then we learned that was Reggie, I was like, oh my word. My heart just kind of broke for him right then, because Chip just was so clueless, like had good intentions, but was still so clueless at how like natural his like talking down, calling his boy, like his privilege and his whiteness, like he just didn't even realize. He thinks he's doing a good deed by giving this kid a little bit extra money, but really it was so condescending and so like, and he didn't even realize it at the time. I'm just like,
he was like, I'm in love with Siobhan. I can date her. Like, why can't I date her? And when his dad was like, you won't even call her dad,
sir, yeah.
Like, and you think you can date her? Have you lost your ever-loving mind?
Yeah.
And like that whole conversation, I was like, he's right.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, even Chip was such a small role, but we got to see a little transformation for him too, like that he did go on to like do good and like realize a little bit more of his own privilege and use it for good in a way.
And that his dad told him about his heritage.
Oh,
yeah. As he got older, and for him to realize like, okay, maybe I don't have life figured out yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just a naive kid.
Yeah. The coach's his heritage was the plot twist. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I agree. Reggie's transformation was a little like the Count of Monte Cristo. Yeah. Very complicated, right? Like he was like very sympathetic in that there was a lot, like you feel bad for all the things that happened to him, and yet he grew up and what became like embittered, totally embittered and resentful, and that did nothing good for him. And that's very much also like,
I didn't even make this connection at all, but as soon as you say it, it's like, oh yeah, for sure. When
like full
Siobhan points out to him, like, you have every kind of soda here and you don't have Coke.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
How many years later and you still won't drink it? Like, you have to move past those things, which, is easy for me to say as somebody who hasn't been put in that situation, but, holding on.
I think we have this counterbalance with Siobhan, right? Who recognizes the injustice that happened, but like refused to let that define her and embitter her. And she's the one that was ultimately able to pull him out, at least mostly pull him out of that.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting, the 1980 timeline, when she basically asks him, like, are you okay dating a Black woman? Like, you've been living white for all these years. How would you feel dating a Black woman? Like, what does that mean? Like, you have been through this system, and yet in your privilege, you're still not making the changes that need to happen.
Right. Like, you have the opportunity
and pointing that out to him.
You have the opportunity now to make the world a better place from the other side. Yeah. And you haven't done it.
Yeah, and all he could offer at that point were just excuses, which was extremely disappointing.
Yeah. And then Siobhan just gave him chance after chance after chance. You could tell, like, he was her one true love. Like, he was it for her. And, you know, when it really came down to the grindstone, that was enough for her. And I thought that his story arc, or his character arc, was extremely relatable to a lot of people. You know, we hold on to those things in our past that were done to us. We don't want to let them go. But then when we do, there's a sense of freedom there.
I also was like, in thinking about his storyline and his arc, like, as far as in a middle grade book, I thought it was very high level.
Oh yeah.
Like
what we're talking about right now, like, kids are not going to understand.
No, right? So I'm like, this would be great for a class, like a discussion where you get to help kids to process a little bit or to understand. Because I think as I'm reading about his storyline, I'm like, wow, this is not middle grade. This does not feel middle grade at all.
There were points where I felt like that too.
Yeah.
Whereas we're following we are following two kids, but we're also following some characters who are very adult in very adult circumstances.
Sure. And I think it's good to have them have scenes like this and characters like this in middle grade books, but also, like, please have a discussion with your kids about it. I just,
like we said before, I wouldn't hand this to, you know, a mid to younger middle grade reader, definitely an upper middle grade reader, if not like that in between age between middle grade and YA. But I think for the subject matters that it wanted to tackle, I think it did so gracefully. Like, it didn't ever mention any particular terms or words that, you know, were implied. They just said, you know, nasty word or vile word or something like that. So they didn't harp on specific terms. And some things were implied that maybe younger kids, you know, would just kind of gloss over. But an older kid might see that in a very mild way and be able to have that discussion with an adult, hopefully later on. So I think it was a nice balance, but it was pushing it just enough to be kind of on the edge of YA, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like Jennifer's comment here about the two timelines and how the current timeline was middle grade, but the historical was more of a YA type of writing. And I would agree with this. I think there's some truth to this. I don't think that anything that was in the past timeline was necessarily inappropriate for middle graders, other than maybe when they got in a fight and it got a little graphic. But outside of that, I don't think anything was like inappropriate, but at the same time, it was very high level, very I don't know as though they would necessarily understand all the implications of the actions and the conversations and what was really going on.
Which I think the author did a really good job at the very end of the book in the author's note, right? Was it the author's note at the end where he gave some historical context, and he even talked about the like historical precedent for passing, and address some of those more high level concepts for kids. I also didn't think anything was inappropriate necessarily, but it just the fact that the characters were more adult and the situations and the
in the past timeline.
In the past timeline, the themes felt more adult.
Yes, I would agree with that. Okay. All right. This was one of my favorite kind of things that came up in the book, in conversation with Candace and Brandon, and a little bit of Tori got in there too. And Jenna, you kind of alluded to this when you were talking about the library scene, but it was mentioned multiple times throughout the book that there is no such thing as boy books and girl books. And then when Tori comes in and she's like, well, if there's no such thing as girl books and boy books, there can't be such thing as old books and young books. And I loved that so much. And I loved that was like something that the author really kind of tried to drive home, was that everybody gets to read every type of book. And so I know that that's kind of something that we all love as well. But do you have any feelings about the way that that was portrayed specifically in this book?
I thought it was really fun. The way that they were talking about it. Like at one point, I think Brandon was reading Dork Diaries. I mean, that's not something that I've seen very often working in libraries, but it would, I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool to see that you shouldn't, limit your reading taste based on what you think you should or shouldn't read, I guess, in that context. So I don't know, maybe it might open more kids up to reading more things that they thought they weren't supposed to read. I don't know. Kind of, it's hard to articulate it, but I thought it was refreshing.
I love that he was hiding in the library reading Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is so classically like a girl book, right? Like, I don't know any prepubescent boy that would want to read that, but if you're interested in it, read it, right? Like, it doesn't, all books are appropriate. Like, all books are appropriate for every whatever, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you can read whatever you want. But I also loved that Tori was like, I might read the Westing game. What makes you think I'm not going to read the Westing game? You know? Like, don't
tell me what I can't do.
Right. I love Tori so much. Oh, man. Yeah, I like, Katie, I keep clicking on your comments. You have some great comments tonight. Everyone had to read the Westing game in this book. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And the other thing that I loved that I noticed throughout the book is that Brandon, even when they were in the middle of the mystery and they were like on the brink of like solving a clue, he was not about to spoil that book for Candace. Mm-hmm. He was like, go read it! Read it! And then we'll talk. Like, like I love that so much that he was not going to spoil that mystery for her, and I thought it was so cute. And
they didn't spoil that mystery for any of us, right? Like, the Westing game does not get spoiled in this book, which I think is really cool.
Which I think the author wants us all to go and read the Westing game too.
Yeah, clearly.
Yep. No, I thought that was just something fun that kind of came up.
I mean, it's kind of a timely conversation too, and with all that's happening with banning books in schools in different states and different things right now, like, yeah, it's a very hot topic. And I mean, it's not specifically about girl books and boy books, but just in general, like reading. And I think
you want to read.
Yeah.
Don't read what you don't want to read. You don't like that book, don't read it.
Well, and I think about when I was nanny for the family of 4, the oldest was not into reading, but would love a graphic novel. And I'm like, fine, read them. Like, if you like dog man books, read them. Like, you're still reading, and eventually your tastes will change and you'll find something else. Or he loved I Survived books. They're like teeny tiny and they're well below his level. But I'm like, if that's interesting to you, then read it. It still counts as reading. You're still gaining something from the experience.
And oftentimes, a side note about graphic novels, what we're trying to drive into a lot of families' heads, namely parents' heads, is graphic novels. They tend to have a higher, their reading level tends to be a little bit higher in terms of the vocabulary. They just have a more limited number of words, obviously. So a lot of people see that and think like, oh, that's not a real book.
Right.
Definitely is, just different. And a lot of the words tend to be pretty complex. more than you might think.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done now.
I love that. Like, because I have kids that read graphic novels and prefer graphic novels. And I sometimes, like, I tend to be like, you want to read graphic novels? Have at it. At least you're reading. I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to read. But then I get to a certain point where I'm like, would you just read a, like, real book? Like, not a real book, but, like, a novel? Come on.
As a parent, I try to walk a line where I'm like, I'm fully support you reading this book. I also want you to read
something at your grade level that I know you're capable of
like
reading.
You need to challenge yourself. Like, read the fun book. Read the stupid Dogman book again.
Again for the 3,000th time.
Yeah.
It's all about balance. It's about balance.
Yeah. But then I want you to go and I want you to pick up a book that's going to challenge you and going to, like, still be a great book.
Right? It's so funny because my 13-year-old will come in and start talking to me about a topic. I'm like, you know what book you should read? Everything she talks about, she's like, Mom, stop. I'm not going to read the book. Like, just because I show interest in a topic doesn't mean I want to read a book about it. I know. I love this too, Kat. When they talked about reading Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and he's like, but did you read them in chronological order?
I instantly thought of Katie.
My opinion.
And when they talk about the Darkest Rising sequence and how they call it a sequence and not a series.
I definitely looked that series up afterwards because I hadn't heard of it and I want to read it now. Not the Chronicles of Narnia, the other one.
The Darkest Rising. I just got. I placed an order on Pango
for it. Oh, you got the whole. You got a bind up.
Book 4 is a Newbery winner, so I want to read it because book 4 won a Newbery. So. Yeah, I did not realize when I got this that it was bind up because I don't pay that much attention because usually I'm in bed, like ordering and purchasing while I'm sleeping, practically.
While you're sleeping.
So, yeah. Got the whole thing. Darkest Rising sequence. Thank you. Thank you, Parker's Inheritance, for introducing me to that series.
Yeah.
It does look nice and floppy. I love a good floppy book.
At first it showed up and I'm like, why is this so big? Oh, it's all 5 books. That's why. Cool.
All right. Any final thoughts?
It was a good one.
Wrap it up?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was really solid.
This is one of the only middle grade mysteries that I've ever read. And I love it. I'm a numbers geek, so I love the numbers aspect. I love the tennis aspect. I love the historical. There were like so many things for me that worked, that were just right for me in this book, that it hit all my sweet spots.
I think it would appeal to a lot of different kinds of readers too. Like if you like historical fiction, it's got that. You like a little bit of contemporary, realistic, it's got that. There's a mystery, there's puzzles. Like, I think it's great.
We didn't really spoil the actual mystery.
Yeah, it's true.
That is true.
That is true.
We talked about some of the clues, but we never.
I think there will still be plenty for you to get.
I mean, you know that they're going to solve it. We spoiled that. They solve it. Surprise. You kind of know that going in, right? So I feel like you're good to finish. There's a couple of you guys here who haven't quite yet finished, but we didn't give away all the juicy details.
Yeah. And there are some juicy details. No, I'm just joking. Well, perfect. Well, I'm so glad that you guys were all able to join us tonight, and I'm glad that the general consensus was that we liked it. I know there were some people in the discussion that were not fans, and I appreciate you guys being here and listening to the discussion anyway, and taking part and taking a chance on this book with us. Our book for next month is that what you're pulling out, Krista? Is 3 Strikes Summer, and it is by, I don't remember, who's it by?
Skylar Shrimp.
And none of us have read this one before.
None of us have read this before.
Well, we haven't.
Katie will be leading our discussion at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So definitely keep a lookout for possible reading sprints midway through the month. That's always kind of up in the air as it comes up if we're available. But yeah, get your
bonus
copy
points
of it.
if you take a picture of this book with peaches or some kind of peach dessert, or drink a peach drink,
baseball.
or make something peachy.
That's a good idea.
Discussion. Bonus points with no prizes, but you can get points.
Hi, Steve.
We love Steve.
Oh, Steve's a character.
Okay.
He's worse than the kids.
Oh, did you hear that chuckle in the background? He really liked that comment. He's like, that gives me license to be even more annoying.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We really enjoyed the discussion and all of your input. And yeah, until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.